Hi, I'm Selena, and today I'm going to talk to you about the fantasy series and books that I still need to read. So this is not all the fantasy that I'm ever going to read. There's obviously new releases that I haven't included on here, and there is a lot of series like Game of Thrones or something that I maybe will read one day, but it's not a huge priority right now. These are just the ones that are really on my radar for the next year, 2021, but I probably won't get to them all during 2021, so it's not a fantasy I'm going to read in 2021 video, but it is a near future fantasy TBR. Cool. This list is not including YA fantasy, and it's mainly only adult high fantasy. I read a lot of YA fantasy. I have read a lot of YA fantasy in my day, and I'm definitely going to continue that, but this is a TBR about adult fantasy, which I haven't explored nearly as thoroughly as I have YA fantasy, and so that's kind of why I'm making this. And then it's mostly high fantasy, but I do have some low fantasy that's on my radar. It's just less of it, so I'm not going to include it on this list. Let's get into the actual books and series. First, I'm going to mention some of the self-published fantasy that I would like to get into in the coming years. First, I'll mention Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks. This is a high fantasy book by a fellow booktuber, Elliot Brooks. I would really like to read her book. I've watched her for several years now, and her book sounds awesome, and so I would like to give it a try, and I think I'll be reading this one really, really soon. What I know about this one is that it is rife with political intrigue, and most of it revolves around a dagger that holds extraordinary power in the world. I know that there's a really interesting magic system, which I think is tied to like color or like parts of your soul. I really don't know too much about this book, but I also know that we're following many different perspectives in many different places, and there's lots of political maneuvering, and so I really want to give it a try. It sounds like a lot of things that I would really, really like. I'm excited. The next self-published fantasy that I've been hearing so much about is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. So I'm actually interested in her other series, the Theonite series, which is related to this, but I've heard that this is a prequel, and the other series is kind of maybe indefinitely on hold, I'm not sure, and so I'm probably going to just focus on Sword of Kaigen for the moment, but it sounds great. And I know not a lot about this book despite watching many reviews of it. What I do know is that it's Japanese inspired, and it follows an island which is not as technologically advanced as the rest of the world. It's kind of old-fashioned, and it clings to its traditions a lot. And then you follow a mother and her son, and the son who is very eager to prove himself as a soldier and go to war, and the mother who is sort of regretting, I guess, some of her past and how things have turned out, and who is scared of war. And all I know other than that is that it has a water-based magic system, and it just sounds really cool. People love this book. It's not traditional in how it's paced, and I'm just really, really excited to read this. Moving on, I have two that I actually own physically right now, and the first one I'm going to talk about is SunRider by Raphael Homan. Oh my goodness, that window does not want you guys to see this cover clearly. So this is a high fantasy by someone that my friend Udi knows, and so Udi actually sent me this book for us to buddy read. We're going to buddy read it eventually, and it basically, all I know about it is it's about a fantasy world where armor falls from the sky. That is the extent of my knowledge about this book. And then the final self-published book that I have on my radar right now, and I own it, is called Sufficiently Advanced Magic by Andrew Rowe. This one I know a little bit more about. I know that we follow a man whose brother has gone up a tower in their world where if you get up there, you have a wish granted, I think, but the brother has not returned since. So our main character is going to follow his brother up the tower, and that's all I know about it. But I'm actually really excited about this one too. So I want to give more classic fantasy series a try, especially after reading and really enjoying The Lord of the Rings. I would like to read some more things and see how fantasy developed to where it is in modern day. I have 4 that I'm really, really excited to give a try to. The first one that I'm going to talk about is The Wheel of Time. I have The Eye of the World here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll just put a picture. Wheel of Time. I'm interested in starting this series because it's a lot of people's favorite series. It's very long. Brandon Sanderson finished the series. I know very little other than that. It sounds interesting when I hear the premise. I know it deals with a lot of classic fantasy tropes like the chosen one, the farm boy, and does them differently and takes them to extremes that other people haven't or didn't at the time. And so yeah, I'm really excited to give this series a try. I know very little about it other than that. I know the world goes in cycles. There's like a wheel that turns. Anyone who's read The Wheel of Time is probably like... Also, I know Amazon Prime is making a show for it, and I would like to read this before the show comes out, or at least part of it until the show comes out. At least the first 2 books, because theories think that's what the first season is going to primarily focus on. I also would really like to give the Realm of the Elderlings a try. So this is a more modern series. It was started being published a long time ago, but it's recently been completed. This is a long series like The Wheel of Time, but this time there is a bunch of little series within it. It's by Robin Hobb, and for the 2 that are the ones that I'm going to start with are the Farseer trilogy. I'm going to read that, and then I want to move on to the Liveship Traders trilogy, and eventually, hopefully, if I love it, I will make my way through the rest of the Realm of the Elderlings. But as of now, the 2 that are on my radar most are Farseer and Liveship Traders, and I'm really excited to give this one a go. I know that the Farseer trilogy is about a young, illegitimate heir to a throne, I think, and he, instead of, being trained to take over the kingdom, is trained as an assassin. And so he grows up throughout the series, and I know nothing more than that. It's very character-driven, I know, but I'm really excited. I don't usually love character-driven stuff, but Robin Hobb's, something about her synopses always get me interested. Liveship Traders, I know, is about traders who work on a live ship, or a ship that is alive, and 3 families must live and die on the ship in order to bring the ship to life. I know nothing else, literally nothing else, but I'm really excited. Both of these trilogies are highly revered. The next one I'm interested in is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I don't know when I'll be starting Discworld, but I probably am going to start with Mort. But I'm really interested in this series. I really tend to like absurdism, like in the vein of like Douglas Adams, and apparently Terry Pratchett is the king. I've read Good Omens before and really like that. I'm just really excited to give Discworld a try at some point. And then the final classic fantasy that I am going to give a try in the coming months, I guess, in the more recent future, is Barbara Hambly's Dragonsbane. And I don't know much about this, but I know that this is the book that got Brandon Sanderson into reading. And from what I know, this is about a middle-aged woman who has to leave her family to go slay a dragon or something. That's probably not right. I cannot remember a lot about these synopses. I don't like to know too much going into things. I don't need to know a lot in order to want to read something, so I don't tend to know a lot. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to be buddy reading with Udi. It's gonna be a good time. On to more modern fantasy. I'm going to first talk about 2 that are in series that I haven't finished yet, and the first one is Mistborn Era 2. I have been going through Brandon Sanderson's work this year, and I've been loving it, and the last major Cosmere work that I have not read is Mistborn Era 2. So Mistborn Era 1 is a book about a Dark Lord who won and the world that ensues, and a heist where a group of people tries to overthrow him and make the world different. And then we follow the same world, Scadrial, generations and generations, like years and years later. And that is Mistborn Era 2, a completely different era. And I know that this one is more Western, steampunk, detective. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm excited to get into it and finally know what people are talking about when they're talking about Mistborn Era 2 and its connections to the Cosmere. And then we have The Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter. So Fires of Vengeance is the sequel to Rage of Dragons. I liked Rage of Dragons, I gave it 4 stars, and I have a feeling that I will like Fires of Vengeance even better because some of the things that didn't quite work with me for Rage of Dragons, it sounds like are changed in The Fires of Vengeance, and the things that I really liked are expanded upon, and so I'm excited to get to this at some point. It follows a character named Tao, who in the first book has been on this revenge plot. He's been on a trajectory heading towards revenge, and the trajectory of the book forces Tao to confront what he has done and how it affects other people, like how his revenge plot is sort of affecting those around him, and is it necessarily what's best for him and what's best for everyone. And I feel like book 2 will just pick up right where we left off and just go from there. I don't want to say more because it's not really something you can say more about. It's a sequel. More series I need to start. I haven't actually started the rest of these. This first one's getting major buzz on BookTube right now, and I'm super excited to try it, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee, and obviously its sequel, Jade War, if I love it. I'm really excited to just dive into the series. Everyone says it's phenomenal. I know it's about a city that is somewhat inspired by Hong Kong, I think, and then it is following rival gangs, I think, and kind of cutthroat nobility. I know we have a magic system that wraps around Jade, and people who can use Jade and can channel its power to have special abilities. I don't know much about this either, as you can see, but I'm very excited. This is like an urban high fantasy, and I'm just excited. Another one that has been getting major buzz around BookTube that I'm so excited about is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And again, you'll find there's a theme of me knowing nothing about things, but I know that this one is a pre-Columbian fantasy, and it takes place in a world where like it's very highly inspired by indigenous cultures and like pre-Columbian America, and I really don't know much else about it, but it's getting major hype. It's got a beautiful cover. I would like to pick it up at some point and see if I love it as much as everyone else does. This next one is a new release. It's been getting some buzz, apparently on Reddit. My friend Udi told me about it, but I haven't seen it going around BookTube too much, but I did just see Brightness Katie Reeds talk about it recently, and so I'll link her channel down below, as well as like Elliot Brooks and anyone else I mentioned. They'll be down below. But this book is The Bone Shard Daughter by... oh no. Bone Shard Daughter. Andrea Stewart. So I think I know a little bit more about the synopsis since I just looked at it. This one is fantasy about a girl who's being denied her right to take over the throne of her country, and so she decides to learn the taboo magic of bone shards, like with the use of bone shards, and take back her position. And everyone loves this book. It's getting major buzz, or on Reddit at least. A lot of people love this book, and so I'm excited to give it a try and see if I love it just as much. The next one that I really want to read is a trilogy, and that is the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I want to read other of N.K. Jemison's work as well, but this is the one that I want to start with because I'm the most excited about it. And this is a trilogy that follows a world where there are earthquakes, like really devastating earthquakes, or like the earth breaks, like it there's an end of the world, there's an apocalypse every so often, and there's also people in the world who have the ability to like affect the earth, and so they're very stigmatized. We follow a mother trying to get reunited with her daughter. I've heard that this one is dark, but so good and so worth it, and so I'm really excited to check Broken Earth out. Then we have The Name of the Wind. So I don't know much about this one either. I just know that it's kind of slow, and it's about this man named Kvothe who has had a long life, or not even, he's like 20 something, but he's had a really eventful life, and he is working as a bartender somewhere, trying to like pass himself off as like not that important or something. And then a chronicler comes to write down his story, and so Kvothe tells it in 3 days, and each book in the series is supposed to be that day of Kvothe telling his life story. Will we see the third day? Hopefully, because I would want to read the third day if I like the first 2 books. So yeah, I would like to read the Kingkiller Chronicles. I would like to know what the hype is about The Name of the Wind. That's on my list. Another one that the hype has kind of gotten to me now that I really want to read is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. So this series has been hyped basically from the first book's release, and I really wanted to read it then. But then I found out some of the dark content it had, and I didn't know if I would be able to handle it. But everyone's like reactions, like crying and like loving this series, has convinced me that like I don't care, I would like to see if I can love it that much. It intimidates me because I'm aware of the pain that it causes people, and it is quite dark and brutal, but I'm still really interested in it, and I would like to read the series. And this one I know is about war. It's inspired by the Sino-Japanese War, I think. The first book has some serious inspiration coming from the rape of Nanking. So there's a bunch of trigger warnings for this one. There's some on RF Kwong's blog. I can link that down below in the description if you want to know about it. And I know that we follow a girl named Rin who basically takes her destiny into her own hands because the people she's living with want to marry her off and she doesn't want that. So she takes a test to get into this very prestigious academy. And from there, the book goes many different places. It's about war. It's about the cost of war. And it's about like grim, dark actions, but not in a gratuitous way, in a harsh and real way, more than it is for any sort of like entertainment value, I guess. On the complete opposite spectrum of like darkness level, I would also like to read Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Ames really soon. This I know is about a band of mercenaries who had a band altogether at one point, and they are now old and married and have children, and they're like grown children, and they aren't a band anymore, but they get back together because one of the members of the band's daughter has gone missing, I think, and so they're going to go save her. And so this one just sounds really nice and fun. It gets a lot of good reviews. Maybe I should read it around the time I'm reading the Poppy War so that I can balance out the darkness with some lightness. 2 adult fantasy by women that don't get too much press anymore, I guess, but I do want to read are The Queen of the Tearling by someone, I don't know, and then The Blood of the Queens? Queen of Blood, I think? Queen of Blood. I know that The Queen of the Tearling is about a lost heir coming to return, but to her throne, but everyone loves this series so much, and so I would like to see what this is about. And then also the Queen of Blood I know has a really cool world with a forest setting, and it just sounds amazing, and I would really like to give it a go. It also has beautiful covers. Then one that I would also really like to give a go is The Priory of the Orange Tree. My boyfriend and I own a copy of this book and we share it, so I can probably get to this one a bit sooner rather than later. I know that this one is supposed to be like a queer fantasy feminist book, and I know we follow a bunch of women in this world where there's a possible war brewing with dragons. I don't know anything about this book, but I would really like to give it a try. I also know that the Bone Shard Daughter is also queer. Some fantasy new releases that I'm really, really interested in getting into when they come out. I'm just gonna say their names really quickly are The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. This is a trilogy inspired by the history and epics of India, and I know that this is queer. It says a captive princess and a maidservant in possession of forbidden magic become unlikely allies on a dark journey to save their empire from the princess's traitor brother. And I know that it is queer, and so like I'm sold. I don't need to know anything else about this. I'm reading it. And then also coming out is She Who Became the Sun, which has been pitched as Song of Achilles meets Mulan. Do I need to know anything else about it? No, simply no. And then I just want to mention some that I'm really nervous about but would still like to give a try. And those are some bigger names that either interest me less or make me nervous because they have really, really mixed reviews. So the first one, I actually own 2 of them. So the first one is Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. I think Brian McClellan was like a student of Brandon Sanderson, and all I know about this is like it's inspired by the Napoleonic Wars, and there's a magic system that has to do with gunpowder. Do I know anything else about it? No. But Udi really likes the series, so I'm gonna give it a try. And then another one that Udi really wanted me to read, and so he sent it to me, is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Mark Lawrence has some things that he has done that doesn't make me the happiest to, support him, but I'm gonna give this one a try because Udi loves it so much. I just know this is Assassin Nun Training School. And the final 2 I don't own, and they are Lightbringer and Dresden Files. So there's also more by Jim Butcher that I really want to get into, like I don't know what his other one is called, The Aeronauts Windlass, that one, but that one's unfinished, and so I would like to maybe start with Stormfront, which is the first book in the Dresden Files. Udi also really likes the series. He really, really likes the series, and he flies through it, so he wants me to read it, and I'm gonna give it a try. I have the audiobook, so hopefully I'll really, really like it. And then also Lightbringer. Both of these series are controversial for some of the content inside them, and I'm not ignoring that by any means, but I'm actually expecting people to be right about that content, but I have also seen people love it despite that content and criticize that content, but also enjoy the series. And so I'm wondering if possibly that can be me. These do make me nervous for that reason though. So they're not high on the priority list, but The Black Prism, the first book in the Lightbringer series, I do want to read it because the premise sounds awesome. Like it sounds like there's like a religion thing going on and like color magic system. I don't know. It sounds great. Hopefully I won't be disappointed by any of these series, because if I don't like every single thing on this list, I'm gonna be very sad. Thank you for watching my TBR of fantasy books that I would hope to read soon. Let me know which one of these are your favorites, which one of these you would also like to read soon, and which ones of these I shouldn't waste my time on. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.